Hello Year 3, welcome back to week 3. We're going to be following on today with the second part of our lesson that we started last week. Now you'll remember we learned about all of the Aboriginal symbols and we drew quite a few of those, and I said that I would let you know if anybody took up the extra challenge of researching and finding some more symbols. Now apologies if I missed any, but Xander found quite a few, so I'm just going to go through a few of those now. And if you also wanted to add those to your art book and perhaps use any of those in your artwork, you can go right ahead. So Xander found the symbol for a goanna. For honey ants. A witchetty grub. A hunting boomerang, which is different to the normal boomerang. A normal boomerang. Some bush tucker. Running out of room here, but a coolamon, which is a dish that holds their bush tucker. And also a woomera, which is, the symbol doesn't look like it, but it's another spear. I'll do it over here. So thank you very much for those, Xander. I liked that Rory Goss also thought outside the box and tried to think of some modern day things and turn those into a symbol. And I particularly liked one that he came up with, and we won't use this because it's obviously not a traditional Aboriginal symbol, but Rory came up with a symbol that he thought they would use for Lego, and I'm going to share that with you. So we won't use that in our artworks, but I did like how Rory was thinking more modern day. So if you need to, if you want to use any of these, maybe pause the video now, write these down, because I'm going to turn this board around and we're going to start working on our boomerang artwork. Now I'll start by going through the items that you'll need for today's project. You'll need your art diary, and remember we only ever work on the right hand side of our art diary. You will need a lead pencil and an eraser, although not for long. You'll also need your watercolor palette and some water. And whenever I'm using watercolor, I always have some paper towel close by. So pause the video, go and get those things for me, and then we'll get started. Now before we start, I wanted to bring your attention back to this example here. And if you remember from last week's video, this actually told a story about some kangaroos going on a long journey looking for water that was protected by an Aboriginal tribe until there was a storm that came through, and so that helped the kangaroos to get to the water. And it was all happened at night, and that was what the star meant. So you don't have to tell a story with your Aboriginal design today. You can if you want to, and if you do, when we return to school, we'll have a bit of a presentation where you can explain your boomerang to the class and explain your story. Otherwise, you can just do an artwork or a design. It's up to you, but you have to use the Aboriginal symbols. That's the only requirement. Right, so getting started, you just need your lead pencil. Turn your page landscape, and you need to do the sketch for your boomerang. Now, if you don't get this first go, remember, nice light sketches so you can erase. I've already got a little bit of a not quite right shape there. And if you use nice light sketches, it's easy to go and fix it up. And then I'm going to draw in the underside. You can see I'm using nice sketches, nice light sketches. And then I'm going to round out the bottoms. There we go, your boomerang shape. Now, if anybody's interested, you can also draw a boomerang shape onto a brown paper bag or a brown piece of paper, and that will give you a nice colour for the background of your boomerang. You can see there I've drawn the boomerang on the brown paper, which gives it a really nice authentic background, but I'm just going to stick to the white so that you can see it more clearly. Now, I didn't do it on this one, but if you wanted to, you can paint the background of your boomerang a nice colour. I'm going to choose the mustard colour and give my boomerang a bit of a background this time. I didn't do it last time. And I'm not going to do it too dark because I want my colours to pop when I put them on. And we also want it to dry quite quick. Because you're not going to be cutting this out, or if you're doing it on brown paper bag, you will be. But if you are doing it straight onto your art diary, try to stay in the line so you get a nice clear boomerang shape. Okay, so I've just put the base of the boomerang somewhere to dry. And what I want everyone to do is to tear out another piece of paper from their art diary and start to sketch out how you want your design. So you'll have to redraw a boomerang. If you took out the piece of paper from underneath the last boomerang you drew, you might have a little bit of an indentation that you can just copy. Doesn't need to be as perfect, your sketch, and start to sketch out where you might want to place things. So if there's a big campfire, start to place in, because when you get to the point where we're adding the paint, you don't want to just have absolutely no idea where things belong. So think about the story you're trying to tell, think about the symbols you're going to use, and start to sketch out a design that you'll use to copy from when we start adding paint. A really important part of the process. And I'm not going to do any more sketching because I don't want people to copy me. I want you to think of your own Aboriginal designs. Don't worry about completely filling this with hundreds of dots now. Just sketch in the main symbols that you're going to be using and then continue on. So pause this video whilst you sketch out your Aboriginal design. Don't worry about colours and paint yet. Now, once you finish with your sketch, the rest of the video is me completing my artwork, and your artwork is going to be completely different. So you might want to have my video playing in the background, but really there's just a few techniques that you need to learn to complete your artwork. So I might just quickly go through some of those techniques now, which I'll repeat through my video as well, just so you have an idea, and you may feel like you don't need to follow on as much with the video like you usually do. So I'll just teach you a couple of those techniques really quickly. If you wanted to do it on this scrap piece of paper as a practice, it's probably a really good idea before you start on your good copy. So for this artwork here, we're using our watercolors, but in a different way than we usually do. So we're going to be adding lots of water onto our watercolor palette, but we're going to be turning our paintbrush upside down and filling the end of our paintbrush with color. Now you can also use things like chopsticks, skewers, kitchen skewers, anything with a small round point. If you use a lead pencil, I find they get a little bit too big. So the first technique is just the dots. And you can see that the dots will get smaller as the colour comes off the end of the brush. So as your watercolour palette becomes dry, add more water and make a real little puddle, like almost like a clay puddle in your watercolour palette there. Now the next one, and I'll just keep using orange so I don't waste too many colours, is you use the end of your brush still, but to sketch. So they're the two main techniques that you're going to be using now for your artwork. And you can see that I had to keep on getting more and more colour onto the end of this brush because it doesn't really hold the colour very well. So even though you might just be drawing one line, you may need to put paint onto your brush maybe 3 times to get that line to finish and to get enough colour on it to finish. So I definitely suggest you have a bit of a practice, have a bit of a play around with some different colours, mix a few colours together to make them more earthy, use your browns and your blacks to add into different colours, and just continue to play around with a few. You might want to practice some of your symbols on this page. When this page dries, I'd love for it to come back into your art diaries because I love looking at all the sketches and the brainstorming part of artworks. So once this is dry, you can just stick that back into your art diary and bring that back to school as well. So remember that the rest of the video is me doing my artwork. You're not following along. You might just want to have me playing in the background, and you might pick up a few more techniques as I go along that you can also apply to your video. Okay, so good luck. After this point, you're going to be starting your own artwork. So get that page back once it's dry, once you're ready to go. So I'll do that second row and demonstrate how we use the watercolors. So lots and lots of water onto the palette, almost making a little bit of a muddy puddle. Then we turn our paintbrush upside down and get lots and lots and lots of colour onto the end of our paintbrush, and we use that as a stamp. And you do have to press quite hard and keep on going back and getting lots more paint. If your palette starts to dry up, get more water. Now, you don't have to use the end of your paintbrush either. If you've got something else round like a pencil, although pencils are quite thick, even some chopsticks or something like that, you can use that, anything that's got a nice round bottom. Now for this part here, just in case you missed it, I continue to use the back of my brush and I mixed mustard and orange together to get some nice earthy colours. To draw the symbol of the long journey. The next part I'm going to use blue. I'm making a nice little puddle in there in my watercolor palette, turning my brush upside down. And that was the symbol of water connecting to water holes. Now mine was a story that was set in the night time, so I had a star in my story. Now I'm not cleaning my brush very much, and so I'm getting quite unusual colours. And that was the symbol for the star. Now remember, you're not copying my artwork, you're doing the same, but I'm hoping by showing you how to do some of these ones that you'll be able to use the same techniques for some of the different symbols that you've chosen to include. Next part, I'm mixing orange and red to get a bit more of a red colour for the meeting place. Actually, this one was people sitting. You can see when your water palette becomes dry, it can be a little bit hard to get that colour. So make sure that you've got lots of water on your palette. And then there was the forest. And then there was a rainbow as well on mine. And we also had the rainstorm. And the last symbol that I used was the kangaroo paws. Almost out of black on my watercolor palette, so I hope we've got enough. Now that was all the symbols that were used in that first project that I showed you. So I'm going to stop there with the symbols. And then remembering that the dots actually stand for all different sorts of things like fruit, berries, and I then just filled the different areas with different coloured spots. And I did this in a deliberate way so that it looked nice and it looked like an artwork. So your palette should be quite wet now. So I'm hoping that you can just continue to add water and make different colours to fill in the rest of your boomerang. Now I will start doing this, but then I'll also pause my video, otherwise this video will go on for a while. So it's a good idea to start, when you start filling in your page with dots, is to start near one of your symbols and follow that outline . Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and keep filling my artwork in with dots, and then I'll come back to you and I suggest you do the same. Pause your video, take your time. If you want to start again, you can start again. It can be quite hard to get this right the first time using these symbols as an artwork, so feel free to make as many as you want or to start again. So you can see I've filled the section in up here. Now I'm doing yellowy mustard colour all over this side here. Now you can also use different coloured paint, different sizes of paintbrushes to get different sizes in your dots. You can also just not press as hard or press harder if you want bigger dots. This is quite time consuming. It's one of the reasons why I think people really like Aboriginal artwork, because when you look at the detail and the amount of dots that they use on those huge big canvases, it's really quite fascinating to imagine that someone has had the patience to complete such a beautiful artwork with so many hundreds and thousands of dots. So you can see here my page is slowly filling with dots. The only section I'm left with over here, that's the last bit that I'm going to fill in with some red dots. So I have just about finished my artwork. The last thing that I will need to do is to wait for it to dry and to go around the outside in a permanent black marker or a Sharpie, just so I get a nice definition there for my boomerang. So once your artwork is dry, you can grab a permanent marker or even the whiteboard marker that was sent to you in your take-home kit and draw a nice thick black line. Might go a little bit thicker than that. So I'm using that whiteboard marker. Really important that your artwork's dry for this. Now you can see when it does dry, if you run your finger over, the dots are actually a little bit raised. So we've got a really nice authentic look there on our boomerangs. I can't wait to see all of your designs. Please submit them in Canvas for me. There's an assignment box, and I have to say, out of all the classes that I teach, Year 3 are by far the best at submitting their work. I get so much more work from all of the students in Year 3. So congratulations for being so organised and doing all of your work and having it handed in. Enjoy the rest of your week. I can't wait to see you all at school on Thursday and to eventually have you all back in the art room. Have a great day. Bye.